أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah. He is one, He has no partner, and that Muhammad is His servant and messenger. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. In the centuries following the advent of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, the followers of the religion of Islam would create a revolution that would lead mankind, and Muslims in particular, to new heights. Islam transformed the unlettered and barbaric Arabs into the leaders of the civilized world. The followers of Islam would advance the world to new heights in morality and spirituality. Islam would give revolutionary rights to women, slaves, and establish the equality of all peoples. Religious freedom would be protected and other faiths respected. These Muslims would enjoy an extended period of great economic progress. A new era of learning would take place. Mathematics, astronomy, and medicine would reach new heights, and great scientists such as Ibn Sina, also known in the West as Avicenna, and Ibn Rushd, also known as Averroes, would come out of this great environment of learning. The great European Renaissance that would come later would be based on the learning achieved by these Muslim scholars. Gradually, as time went by, the economic progress would turn into decadence. Religious fervor would turn into closed-minded fanaticism. The atmosphere of learning would disappear, and intellectually, Muslims would even begin to decline. This would come to a head at about the time of the Crusades, in which the European invaders would be inspired by the achievements of the Muslim world and would build the foundations of the Renaissance. Unfortunately, the Muslims would continue to decline, and eventually all the qualities that marked the greatness of the Muslim world would become only a memory. In recent centuries, the situation of the Muslim world has remained deplorable. Until this last century, most of the Muslim world was colonized by Western nations. Even after gaining independence from the Western powers, the political situation of the Muslim world has been marred by internal strife, corrupt leadership, and the worst of all, the rise of militant movements. Many Muslim nations are heavily influenced or controlled by these extreme militant movements. These movements distort Islamic teachings to support their militant objectives, completely changing the true meaning of the Islamic concept of jihad from a defense of religious freedom to a tool of religious aggression. Far from being the world's centers of learning that they used to be, illiteracy is now commonplace in many Muslim nations. These illiterate masses are ignorant of the true teachings of Islam and are easily manipulated by militant clergy and other corrupt individuals. Those who are educated enough to know better are often held in check by the threats of violence and terrorism from the militants. Religiously, most Muslims are now consumed by the superficial aspects of religion and spend more time focusing on semantics than on Islamic principles and spirituality. Debate over the positioning of one's feet during prayer can easily turn into a riot. Many of those who have enough sense to be appalled by such nonsense go to the other extreme and abandon Islamic practice altogether or create their own ways of practice and beliefs. Aside from the nations that have the good fortune to have significant oil reserves, nearly the entire Muslim world suffers from third world economies. The honest business dealings that built a great reputation for the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, and his companions are no longer reflected by many Muslims who have built reputation as dishonest businessmen. Corruption is common, and in many Muslim countries, government officials expect a bribe in order to give a service. There is little doubt that Muslims are stuck in a dark age. A backwards medieval mindset has gripped the Muslim world for centuries. It is clear that a change is needed. This is an observation that is even being made by those outside of the faith, and the need for it is obvious. Yet it should be no surprise, as the decline of the Muslims and their misguided behavior that we see today was predicted in very clear terms by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings of God be upon him. He foretold exactly what is happening today. The good news is that he also foretold the coming of a great change that would revive the faith as it was in the time of the Holy Prophet. He foretold the coming of the Messiah and the Imam Mahdi, who would revive Islam and spread belief in God to the world. This is the purpose of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. The founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, may peace be upon him, was sent by God as the Imam Mahdi and promised Messiah. As the reformer of this age, he was given the task of reviving and restoring the pure message of Islam as taught by the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, and spreading that light to the rest of the world. Hazrat Ahmad alayhi salam did not establish a new faith. He taught that Islam was complete and perfect, but that the true spirit of the faith had faded, and now that had been replaced by ritual and superficial practice. He taught the true purpose of Islamic practice and reinvigorated that practice in his followers. Additionally, many innovations and distorted teachings had been introduced, hiding the true teachings of Islam. Ahmad refuted these distortions and clarified the correct beliefs and practices. Hazrat Ahmad was a champion of the Holy Quran and taught that the principles of the Holy Quran are eternal and complete, covering all situations in life. He proclaimed that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, to be the greatest of the prophets, and considered himself to be subservient to his authority. He taught that in order to truly understand Islamic teachings, one must model themselves after the Holy Prophet, as he was the most complete and perfect of God's messengers. Hazrat Ahmad wrote more than 80 books expounding the teachings of Islam. His teachings adhere to the principles of moderation and reason, avoiding extreme viewpoints. He wrote extensively on the subject of comparative religion, maintaining that all of the world's major religions were originated from true messengers of God. He taught that the founders of these religions, even those not specifically mentioned in the Holy Quran or the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, were messengers of God. This includes such messengers as Krishna, Buddha, Zoroaster, etc. May peace be upon them. He maintained that the original message of these prophets was to worship the one true God. However, over time, the message of these prophets was distorted by their followers. As a result of this belief, he always honored the previous prophets, even though he taught that Islam has superseded these regional religions as the universal faith for all of mankind. Thus, tolerance towards other religions is incumbent upon every Muslim. He noted that all the world's major religions spoke of the coming of a reformer in the latter days. Both the Christians and Muslims believe in the second coming of Jesus, the Messiah. The Buddhists believe in the coming of the Maitreya, and Hindus believe in the return of Krishna. Hazrat Ahmad proclaimed that it is not possible that God would send a messenger for each of these faiths, as these messengers would be in conflict and competition with one another. He explained that these were prophecies referring to one and the same person, fulfilled by the latter-day reformer of the universal faith of Islam. This role was filled by Hazrat Ahmad as the promised Messiah. One of the distinguishing features of the promised Messiah's advent was his strong stance on Islam being a peaceful faith. When Jesus, may peace be upon him, the first Messiah, came, the Jews insisted that the coming of the Messiah would bring a violent revolution, liberating the Jews from Roman rule.